Agenda, please.
I second it.
Moved and second to adopt the agenda as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Approval of the minutes, 3.0. Review those and let me know if you have any corrections.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those minutes from January 8th and January 11th special meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 4.0, consideration of bills and warrants. Questions over the bills tonight?
Motion to approve bills and warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those bills and warrants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. 5.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. Is there anyone in the crowd that's not already on the agenda that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to 6.0, special report. Neil Phillips, CPA, about the audit report that he's going to present.
Right there. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Neil Phillips of Jared Gilmore and Phillips. We prepared your independent audit for this year. Let's skip past that separate letter that's in there and dive straight into the audit report. That's on page 1, 2, and 3. And the first section there talks about adverse and unmodified opinions. They've moved the opinion letters up to the top of the report now. The first paragraph talking about what we audited, being the school district as of June 30th, 2023. The second paragraph talks about the fact that this is an adverse opinion. And what that means is, in the state of Kansas, all school districts, we do not follow GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. We follow what they call the statutory or the regulatory basis of accounting, meaning Kansas cash basis and budget laws. That's what you should be familiar with. You can't approve the expenditure if you don't have the money in the bank. Can't approve that expenditure if you don't have the public approval. So the third paragraph there is actually the most important one. It is called an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting, which what that means to you, based on the testing we did, we feel like you have a materially accurate representation of what happened during the year and how you ended the year without any further modification needed. Meaning we feel like the numbers that are presented here are materially correct. The next couple of sections talk about the adverse opinions, management's responsibilities. We've got the auditor's responsibilities listed out on the next page, and then it talks about the supplemental information. It does tell you that we did audit everything that's in the bound document here. And then the very last paragraph there on the bottom, page 3, talks about government auditing standards. There's some other audit reports that are out there. The AICPA and the Kansas Municipal Audit Guide predict and tell us what to put in number 1. But government auditing standards, because we do the testing of your federal programs, we have some additional reports. They're going to be bound in the same report here. They call it a single audit reporting package. We think it makes best sense to put it together. So we'll see those here in just a minute. But that paragraph's telling users the financial statements that those reports are out there. All right, page 4 and 5 is where we spend the majority of our time. State of Kansas defines statement number 1 as to show users at a glance that we're in compliance with the cash basis laws of the state of Kansas. Meaning we glance down through the funds there, and if any of those ended the year negative, in which I'm looking at the 4th column over, that would be considered what they call a violation of Kansas statutes. As you see down through there, you can see there's a couple of them that are. With every rule, there are some exceptions. If you have a signed grant agreement, or a signed bond document, or a signed capital lease agreement, you are allowed to go negative because, like the federal grants, you have to spend it and wait for the money to come back in. And so the state of Kansas recognizes that those kind of situations do exist. The couple funds that you do have that ended negative there, you can kind of glancing down through there, you can see they're both grant funds. And so you would have had a grant agreement, and so that is not considered a statutory violation because you did have the grant agreement in place. But this statement breaks out all your different funds. Just add a snap. You can see beginning balances, the receipts that came in, expenditures, ending unencumbered cash balances. Ending unencumbered cash would be cash less any obligations. So that includes any accounts payable. So we may have paid a bill in July or August but it really had to do with June, that gets booked back because you made that obligation prior to June 30. So if you're looking down all the way down towards the bottom, you can see we started the year out with $2.8 million of unencumbered cash. We brought in 30.9, spent 31.7, so actually ended the year with 2,018,279. And then in this statement, there's an add back of cash, which is those, or add back of encumbrances and payables to get you your cash balances. Then there's a reconciliation of the cash down below that in which you have your monies invested in the checking account, and then there's the activity fund accounts that are out there. All right, pages 6 through about 16 or so is the words to back up the numbers. Footnote number 1 is going to be the same if you pick up any school district in the state of Kansas, because it's describing what the Kansas cash basis rules are, what the accounting rules are. And so if you get over to page 9 is where we get into information that's specific to you. Footnote number 2, first thing is stewardship, compliance, and accountability. As you glance down through there, you're going to see this is where we talk about the fact that there is that statutory authority to go negative in those couple funds because you did have signed grant agreements. Footnote number 3 does talk about deposits and investments. We are limited as a district. We can't just go out and put our monies in the stock market or anything risky. We are only allowed to do certain investments with certain depositories. And so it talks about that, all that information there. The top of the next page talks about the fact that your cash in bank was $3.7 million. It actually had a bank balance of $4.8 million. So the difference there would be outstanding checks. Of that, $397,000 was covered with FDIC, and $4.4 million of that was covered with what they call securities pledged. And I've been kind of touching on this footnote because the fact is we've had a couple banks that have failed here in the last couple years. This is when they have securities pledged. It is required by Kansas statute that you monitor that on an ongoing basis. And that is like the mortgage on your house. I always give that example. The bank puts their name on your mortgage, and they have no right to that house, your house, unless you stop making payments, in which they could go out and grab that house and recoup the monies that they have owned, or that you owe them. Well, the bank does the same thing with some of their investments. They have some T-bills and some T-notes out there that actually have your name on them. You have no right to them. You don't get the interest off of them. The only way you would be able to get those is if the bank would fail, you'd be able to go out there and grab those to recoup our monies. So basically it's a way to be a stepped-up creditor rather than just like a local individual that would have monies in the bank. So all of your funds were secure at year end, so that is a good thing. We talk about your financing lease there in the middle of page 10, then right to use contracts, that's your operating leases. Footnote 6 on page 11, there is the energy lease. I like that display better than the footnote that was on their prior page because it shows we started the year out with a principal balance of $1.3 million. We paid that down by $130,000, so actually ended the year with $1.1 million left on that capital lease or financing lease. And then you've got the payout of that clear out to 2031 listed below that. That's the future maturities. All right, the next footnote is footnote number 7, which is CAPERS. Just a real quick, it talks about what the CAPERS plan is, how much we put into it. I do want to point out on page 13, it's about halfway down the page, it says net pension liability with an underline there. That scares a lot of people. That is a $12,362,000 obligation that is considered yours at the state level. You know, we all hear that the CAPERS fund is in deficit, meaning we don't have enough money in the pool currently to pay all retirees. If they ever gave that to you and said, no, you're going to pay out everybody that's in the system, you would actually be about $12 million short for being able to make all those payments. Now, we hope that never happens, but we are required to disclose that to you. If we had GAAP financial statements, that would show up as a liability. But since we're on KMAG, it only gets to be disclosed in the footnotes. That number kind of scares people sometimes. But hopefully the state general fund would step up and cover that shortfall if anything like that ever happened. All right, I'm not going to go through each of the rest of the footnotes, but I'm going to have you turn to page 17. Page 17 is to show users at a glance that you're in compliance with the budget laws in the state of Kansas. Very last column, if you were over budget in any of your funds, that'd be a violation of Kansas statute. As you glance down through there, you can see, yeah, our general fund was over by 37 cents. That's not considered a budget violation because you are allowed to zero out your general fund. The rest of them all are in brackets, so meaning under the budget. Then pages 18 is probably a little closer to the detail you're used to seeing, like the general fund there. And we put the prior year in there so you can see a comparison. You got prior year general fund receipts of $10,557,000. This year it was $11,246,000, which you can see most of the increase there was in the state general state aid. Then the expenses continue on the bottom of that page. General fund is required to be spent out 100% with budget and 100% with cash, and you can see that you did do that. Then the supplemental general fund is on the next page. But you've got all your funds here listed out individually with a prior year comparison, and it also is compared to your budget. And you're going to see that this is pretty much in the state budget format, so. With that, I'm not going to go, like I said, I'm not going to go individually by fund. So I'm going to have us turn to page 48. Now, if you're at home tonight and using this book to try to help you get to sleep and have a question, I would be glad to try to answer that if you wanted to send me an email or something later. But on page 48 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This is the federal money that flowed through the district, in which we are required to do additional testing if you spend more than $750,000 of federal money, which in your case, you can see we spent $5.4 million. So I always think that's a really big positive for the school district because that's federal taxpayers' pocket, not our local taxpayers' pocket. Well, per se, we all pay federal income tax, but it's a much bigger pocket. So that's $5.4 million of federal dollars that are coming in. And that schedule shows you by the different U.S. departments, U.S. Department of Education, we had the Department of Agriculture, and then we had some money from Health and Human Services there. The next section is the first of those reports because we follow government auditing standards. Pardon me. Page 49 and 50 is the looking at internal controls and compliance at the upper district level. If we had any problems with internal controls that rose to the level that need to be disclosed to you, this is where that would fall. That means, and when I say upper district level, this would be like bank reconciliations, cash receipting, cash disbursements, the way we're doing our internal financial accounting. If we had any problems that were noted, it would be noted in here. And as you look through this report, you're going to see it as an unmodified report, meaning we didn't have any problems that we needed to disclose to you in your internal controls. The next three pages, 51, 52, and 53, take that down to what they call the major program level, in which we're required to select some of your federal programs and actually test the internal controls and test you for federal laws and regulations with that grant. And this last year, we selected your elementary and secondary school energy relief fund, ESSER funds. That's what you'd be know them as. We tested those as major, meaning we pulled expenditures, made sure we had the right invoices, made sure we had all the right documentation behind all the expenses that we had, made sure we properly reported it to the federal government, made sure we took care of all the right I's, dotted the right I's, crossed the right T's. And as you read through this report, it is an opinion-based report because we do test internal controls and test compliance. As you read through that, you're going to see it as an unmodified opinion, which means we had no problems at the federal level. So, yay. Then page 54, where everybody wished it would have just went in the first place. The federal government does not want to have to look page by page, so they require us to put a one-page synopsis in here of everything I just told you. The first bold heading says financial statement. That was the audit report that was on page 1, 2, and 3. You can see it says it was an adverse opinion on GAAP. However, it was an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. The next bold heading says internal control over financial reporting. That was the audit report that was on page 49 and 50. Again, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no non-compliance required to be reported. Federal awards, that's the audit report that was on page 51, 52, and 53. No material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. It was unmodified. There are no findings to be reported. There's where we talk about which program we audited as major. And then auditee qualify as low-risk auditee. It is marked as no. Hopefully it's been explained in the past, but in the state of Kansas, the federal government does not recognize the state of Kansas cash basis and budget laws as a acceptable basis of accounting. They only accept GAAP. So right now, every school district in the state of Kansas is marked no because we follow the Kansas regulatory basis. It is required by the Department of Ed, so we have to follow that basis of accounting. So all of us in the state of Kansas are actually marked as no for right now until we can get the federal government to recognize Kansas cash basis. You can see the bottom two sections are findings in which they all say none, and the very last page is prior year audit findings, also says none. Real quickly, there was a separate letter that was in board copies only. This letter does not go out to everybody else. This is what they call a letter to those charged with governance. It has a lot of important information in there, difficulties encountered, disagreements with management. As you read through that, you're going to see it's pretty boilerplate. But it is important because it is a letter to those charged with governance. So there's a lot of good information in that first 2 pages there. The third page is the small adjustment that got made to your financial statements, a whole $1.36, but we're getting things to zero out that way. And then the very last section of that is what they call the client representation letter, which I often refer to that as the reminder letter, because as management reads through that, they should have talked to the auditor about everything that's in that document. It says there's no material lawsuits, no material conflicts of interest, no problems with grantors. I'm kind of making light of it. It's 5 pages long, but it is boilerplate because we didn't have to modify it in any way. But that is now required that we give you a copy of what was signed between management and the auditors. All right, it's kind of a quick presentation. Is there questions?
Any questions from the board? I don't think I have any questions either, so appreciate your time.
All right,
for your help.
thank you.
Thank you.
Rush out of here, I gotta go do another one of the
Make the rounds.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to 7.0, accountability report, Mr. McGuire for technology.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, new board members. Sorry I was sick last month, but I'm here now, so. I didn't know it wasn't in your packet, and I know it went out in the, I think the View last month, so just in case you didn't bring a copy, I brought a copy of those pages. So, all in all, we're doing pretty well. This is kind of like my red, green, yellow kind of status of what things are in. Obviously, if something's green, it's exceeding expectations. Yellow is we're doing fine. Red is basically you can expect to see recs for it on next year's budget. So, and then blues is kind of like a looking into like forecasting price-wise type of thing. They kind of can fluctuate a lot. The main blue things are like security cameras, whether we would host them ourselves or pay someone else to host them and pay them fees. And then I know especially at the middle school location, they're looking into getting more smart TVs, especially like on the 3rd floor where the the HVAC units shake too much for us to mount the projectors on the ceiling. So a TV really helps with that. They're just a lot more expensive. But we've been getting them through some grants and opportunities, so slowly over time we're getting those swapped out. So what's hitting us on the red are we have Lincoln iPads coming up. And I guess before I go into that, I kind of, if you look on your pretty graph here, the main goal of this is to try to spread out costs over the years to where I'm not going to hit you with a $750,000 a year, and then next year is only going to be, $100,000. So we're getting everything on a good cycle. We kind of got everything at the same time whenever COVID hit us, so we're kind of fixing that, spreading that out, running some stuff like, a little close to the edge, getting rid of some stuff early while we can still get some resale value out of it, so we're getting it figured out. The big one that's hitting us are Lincoln iPads. The Guthridge Chromebooks that we purchased were a really good deal at the time, and then now we have figured out why, because they don't make parts for them. So we can't, we decided to go with insurance. We can't get quotes for them anymore because they have to basically buy a new one and then scrap it down for parts. So we're looking to get rid of those while they still have some value and swap that out to a brand that we know we can get insured. We have a lot of staff laptops, staff that travel between the buildings, counselors, that sort of thing that are coming up. We have about maybe like 14 or 15 different models of laptops, so keeping those supported can be kind of an issue. We've truncated down or maybe extended, kind of like we did with the Chromebooks, to where we just have a 1 year where we're just buying a large amount of them at the same time. So they'll be the same model, they'll hook up to displays the same, we'll have the same troubleshooting tips, so that'll really help us out. Black and white printers we're getting hit with this year. We talked about maybe doing it last year, but we had to spread it out since we have a toner left. Now that toner is very expensive because as printers, as a model gets harder to find, the toner gets harder to find. So you get, your boxes are more beat up as you get them. This is one of the 16 ones left on Earth. So we're kind of looking into getting out of that. And then we had a server, our main server that has flow of all of our traffic through the district. It's desperately needing an upgrade. So we've kind of hit it hard. We did some upgrades to it whenever we added 450 devices overnight, but it's starting to show its age now. So that's just to kind of see. So basically my project budget, what I'm asking for next year is $313,250. That's everything labeled in red, and except for the cameras, those aren't factored into it. I know we have a security grant opportunities coming up. We're looking into that. But anything you see with like an asterisk doesn't go into that calculation. So, and I mean, that's pretty much it there. I know there was a question last time, I think when I wasn't here, what's my budget? So the project portion of my budget, what I'd ask for is basically that, and then operating costs and, monthly payments on phones and internet service and all that kind of stuff. That has been trending upwards in the past years. Like back in 2018, 2019, it was under $200,000, but we're looking more in the $350,000 range anymore. So if you had to guess, if you had to look at a total budget, you'd be looking at maybe $650,000-ish.
Questions from Mr. McGuire about this analysis here?
When do we want to discuss the whiteboards versus TVs and cameras? Is that the conversation we want to start now? Or let me ask you this, Ben, on the smart TVs versus the whiteboards, is there any type of difference as far as the estimated longevity of comparing the two?
They're pretty much the same. You're looking at a smart TV. The main reason why we've avoided them is the cost. They're actually, our smart boards that we have right now as a standard are 86 inches, which seems to be big enough for back of the classroom. We have a projector with that, so the smart board, the projector, the computer that runs both of those, and every teacher also has an iPad or a Chromebook, so they have what the students have, so they can also kind of work in those environments. All of those add up to the cost of one TV. So, but we're seeing those prices come down, finally. So as they kind of caught on, they were a luxury, and now people are kind of seeing it. But one of the problems is we put a TV in, it's not going to be 86 inches. So they kind of trend down to like the high 60s, low 70s. If you put an 86 one in there, it's even more expensive. But panel technology is getting cheaper and cheaper, so we're approaching a time. But it's mainly just, I know that there's been, you know, especially in that environment, that's kind of always come up, so I just wanted to include that on here. And that's kind of come up on and off through the years as these are coming out, so.
You also referenced the security grant on the camera. What's the update on that?
So there's federal grants for some cameras. I mean, I don't know what our odds are of getting it, but we're looking into writing some federal grants. So they're pretty complex, and they'll take a lot of time, and we don't really have a grant writer, so it's kind of like getting in there and piecing it together. But, you know, our admin, our teachers, Lori and I really feel that we need more cameras. So we're trying to pursue any angle that we can to try and help with funding on that.
And so there is a Safe Schools grant that should be coming out this spring. Trouble is, we don't know exactly what we can write for. So because sometimes that grant will come out and they'll say everything except, like last year when the plan had been, or the year before we were going to write the grant, we had everything, right, and then no cameras, you couldn't apply for cameras. So that's one that we will apply for if cameras are eligible.
What does
this
it
spring.
normally cover?
Well, it's like last
Secure
year or the year before, it covered
entrances or-
secure entrances.
Yeah.
So like if you had a doorway, you know, so not necessarily door locks, but where there was, you could come into a vestibule and that be locked before you, you know, then into the main office.
So it's not the same thing every
No.
year, they
Mm-mm.
change, okay.
Mm-mm. And some years it's, you know, it may be windows, it may be locks, it may be, you know, cameras.
Is this cost materials and labor to install on the cameras?
Yes, so that's been factored in. If you kind of look at my little overview here.
And so is that third-party installation then? Or-
Yeah, and we've been looking into options. Again, that's why there's so many listed there too, but it's kind of, we just recently, what if we didn't run out to the poles like at the high school? Because those cables are basically mystery cables, and we're not going to go digging under the parking lots to go find them. So what if we transferred everything to the building instead? So we'll have plans, a lot of plans, and then we'll factor those down.
Okay.
But in kind of, you know, this is the cost if we had someone to come cable it, this is the cost if we didn't. Just looking at manpower, we'd have to at least get temporary help over the summer to do it because cabling takes a long time. And you're talking about the entire high school, the entire middle school, possibly grade schools, so. And we just don't have the manpower to handle that like in one summer if it's just us.
Sure. Okay.
And so once we know what grants are available, either what's awarded that Jeff and his group are filling out, or what's available this spring, then we'll come back and say, here's what's available, here's what we were or weren't able to secure, and here's what we need, depending on what the board wants to do.
And that's what, like, especially Jonathan has been working really closely with principals and things like that. So we'll have plans that'll be ready to go. So if someone says, we have money, but we have a month, and they go, plan A through E, what do you want to do? So that kind of can save us on that. So it's always good to be prepared for if money shows up.
Here's how we can spend it.
So what's the total cost for all these security cameras? I can't figure it out.
The total cost for,
Middle school, high school,
so middle school, high school, if we did it ourselves, we're looking at like $280,000, and that includes someone else coming in and cabling it. We are trying to get that cost down by looking at different camera vendors and stuff like that, maybe pivoting to a different system. There's lots of different options, but if we don't have a system that works with our staff being able to look up incidents reliably, then we haven't solved anything. You can have a really nice camera, but if it's really hard to look it up, it's not showing me the time correctly, and that's kind of what we're running into now. We just have an aged system right now. So, and usually ease of use, you have an increased cost to that. So
what was the total cost?
if we did it ourselves, but you still had people to come in and help cable, you're looking at 280,000-ish
That's
for the
just
middle school and high school.
Right, yeah.
Middle school and high school.
Yeah. And then there's, sorry, it's kind of small on here, but also there's like, if we did an external host for 5 years and then that cost gets transferred out to, in 5 years, you have to pay a licensing cost every 5 years. Then if we did like every classroom, or if they did every classroom. So this is kind of a very bulk, what you're looking at, but the cheapest way would be if we did it.
So it's 280 to $1.1 million.
That's what I
is the
thought.
range. Yeah. Other questions on that? We really haven't discussed as this board whether we feel like it's necessary to have cameras in every classroom. I mean,
That's a good question.
That's a huge differential here. So what are the advantages of the external hosting, in your opinion?
Advantages are, usually they're more expensive for a reason. You know, they usually have a really good interface. You know, they have updates that they do. They'll have a lot more clients asking for a lot more features. So you kind of get, you know, hey, these wanted facial recognition, this, that, the other thing. So we just made it standard now, so you get it too. It's just that cost, and it's that continuing cost that kind of hits you. So in terms of like, if we hosted it ourselves, we would buy the extra servers, the extra DVRs, to where if we lost one, we would hot swap in another one. External hosting would be, you'd go through some kind of return RMA, so they'd ship us a new one, hopefully first, and then we'd swap it and then ship them off so it's kind of what their turnaround time is with that, so.
Do you think with the current size of your tech department, can you host, if we replaced all middle school, high school? Do you have the
Yeah.
capabilities right now?
Yeah, definitely. So we have because of E-rate and what we get from them, we have the wide area network. Our connections between the buildings is really strong. We have pretty much the fastest internet in Parsons. We have 10 gig internet out. So, and we wouldn't even use that if we were hosting it locally. But yeah, we have the capability. So it's just running networking wire everywhere, which we've been doing. So the cameras are just analog, so you can't reuse the wiring that's in place in the middle school and high school. So that's kind of the big, we probably would have already done it if they were IP cameras, but.
But if someone else hosted it, any of the updates that were needed, those things would just be automatic.
Mhm.
And it wouldn't be any additional work or time for the
Correct.
we currently have in technology. And then that way, it's getting done in a timely manner, in
Mhm.
case there are other things that are happening in the department.
Ben, how old are our cameras that we have?
In terms of middle school and high school, I don't really like to speculate too much in terms
They're
of,
pretty old though, right?
they are pretty aged, yeah.
We should probably not talk about these things on public record.
I usually try to keep that to
Yeah.
executive session.
Right.
I know I've come in a couple of times with that, so
Yeah.
I don't really want to discuss, you know, but yeah, it's a valid question, so.
What's the projected life of the new cameras?
I mean, we got a lot of life out of these, but they're basically over end of life, like they should have been replaced. We've kind of put this forward a couple of years. We've been looking for grants. I would say, at the very least, I mean, video, it's all depending on what video quality you want. And kind of, they should be slated to last 10 years easily. And especially if we hosted them ourselves, we'd have spares. The systems we've been looking at, even if they come out with a new camera, you can just swap it right in. So you just have one camera that's different, but in terms of the system, it doesn't care. So that's kind of what we're looking into, something that will have that longevity to where some systems you buy, and if you don't, that's another external hosting thing. If we had an external host for cameras, we want to add cameras, we have to go to them, because I can't buy one and hook it up. It has to be their camera plugged in with their stuff and add a license to it. So there's pros and cons of each. But
So approximately 10 years though, plus.
yeah,
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that update, appreciate
Alright.
it.
I love your color coding, Ben. I love it.
oh, I thought you were.
No, I mean like, I love the color coding. Thank you for your detail.
All right.
It's really easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to 8.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
All right, so the first thing is the legislative update. There's stuff coming out all of the time. There just is. I think, so every Thursday, the state's, KSDE hosts a state superintendent's meeting, and something we go over each week are the current legislative things that are happening. I would just encourage you, I've got a website. If you go to kslegislature.org, that's where, and I showed it last year, but that's where it is, kslegislature.org. And when you get there, you just click on, it'll say the 23-24 legislative sessions. You can just click right on that. And then that's going to give you an up-to-date list, moment by moment, of, you can find current events like, here's what's in the House, here's what's in the Senate, here are the bills and resolutions, here are the schedules for the meetings, those kinds of things that are happening. And they're all that's over in a little sidebar on the left. If you click on, you can, if you know the bill number, there's a little thing where it says find your bill, and you can put your number in there. Now, they change bill numbers, just so you know. And so a House bill may be then taken and put in a Senate bill. There's a variety of ways things change, but this is up to date. So just as of last Thursday, there were 30 new bills read in and several more on Thursday and Friday. And so there are a couple that are pretty big. One is House Bill 2738. That's the way in which they figure special ed. And it takes into account your LOB. It's a big old long formula. I think that one would have about a $203,000 negative dollar impact for Parsons if they fund it this way. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. We're in the very preliminary stages. I'm not losing any sleep yet. None of this we can control right now till they get to the end. So, but if you go to that kslegislature.org, that'll tell you everything you wanted to know and probably a whole bunch more that you can read, all kinds of stuff. Okay? So there is that. Strategic planning, we have met a total of 7 different times and met with a variety of stakeholders. Included in your view last week was the data collection from those Google forms. And, we did a multiplier for first choice, second choice, third choice, so that would be easy to tell. The rankings with those weighted amounts. The top 3 things were early childhood development, family engagement, and chronic absenteeism. All of that was within a percentage or 2 apart from the other. So, is there anyone else, any other group that you would like for me to meet with or send this data collection form to, or for Jeff and I to share the presentation before we begin to just develop a draft that we bring to you next month?
All I can say is, I looked at the ratings of the input, and I find it quite fascinating and interesting, and I kind of agree with them. Not kind of, I do agree with them.
And I
So
thought,
looks like there's some pretty in-depth thinking going on there.
and I think, and by a variety of groups, clear across all the stakeholder groups. I thought that was interesting
That's
too
good.
when I looked at the data.
Good.
So. Okay, so any questions on that strategic planning? What kind of where we're at? So what we'll do is we'll begin to write a plan, and then in March, we're going to bring it back, and you're going to help flesh it out and tell us, these are the three things that you want. You don't want this included, you do want this, what the board's priorities are going to be, and so then we'll continue working on it in March and April. Okay? That work? Okay. All right. Next thing we've got are just a bunch of dates as we're coming up calendar-wise. We're going to have that early dismissal on March the 4th. That's a Monday. They're going to work on grades, and then we're going to have parent-teacher conferences for third quarter. So on that Monday, elementary, middle school, high school, we'll all have them that day from 4 to 7:30. March the 5th, then it will just be elementary. March the 6th, it'll just be middle school, high school. This will be our spring conferences, so middle school, high school students will be having a student-led conference and go over their individual plans of study at that meeting with their parents as well. The other thing coming up is in March the 8th, school will not be in session. That'll be that conference comp day. When they work those 2 half-days, they get a day. Spring recess is March the 11th through the 15th, and tentatively right now, our next regularly scheduled board meeting is that Monday, the first Monday of spring break, March the 11th at 6 o'clock. Anybody have any questions?
I'll need you to run that board meeting, Julie, while I'm gone.
I will not be here. I will be in
I was
different
depending
state.
on you.
I was in a different state.
It'll be my birthday.
Spring break.
It's your
Spring break.
birthday. You can
So
run.
what are we gonna do? And you're not gonna be here, Jeff?
No, I was just joking, because I figured Julie wouldn't be here, but I'm thinking she was looking for some leadership opportunities. I was going to transfer some.
No, if it's your birthday, we definitely have to have a meeting. We can have cake.
Okay.
It would be Lou anyway, not me.
We're going to, well, Lou said he wasn't going to be here either, so.
We're all going on spring break?
No, we're just joking. We're going to talk about the board meeting date here in a minute.
In case people really are going to be on spring
Yep,
break.
that's right. So we're going to move on to 9.0, reports from principals. We'll talk with them first, and then we'll talk about some other things.
Good evening. The paper I handed you was our spring assessments. I didn't color code it, but now, next time it will be color coded. You can see we're pretty busy February through April with all our testing, all our assessments. A lot of students getting tested throughout the spring. I don't want to read that list to you, that's why I gave it to you there, but I do have some other dates I'd like to share. Last week, our Communities in Schools brought in a Finance Now event. The middle school came over in the afternoon, the high school did it in the morning. They give you a budget, you go around to a bank, a car dealership, utilities, and you get to see how much stuff really pays, how much money you'll have at the end of the month. So, eye-opener for some of the kids to see, what they would have left over at the end of the month. I think it was really good that the middle school came over also. Some important dates coming up. March 19th, we have our NHS induction ceremony. March 26th, we have a career fair. So local businesses will come in. Our kids will get a chance to visit with them. April 13th, prom, of course. I don't want to forget that. April 17th, our local scholarship interviews. April 25th, our juniors are doing mock interviews. May 1st, we have a signing day for all our seniors. If you're going to any college, if you've got a career lined up, or if you're going into the military, Colleen's going to come over and Ms. Kendricks will do something for senior signing day. And then, of course, graduation May 12th. That's pretty much our spring schedule.
On the sports side of things, girls wrestling competed over the weekend. We had 2 girls compete. They did not win. They're not going to state, but they both won a match, and that was great to see. There was definitely progress for the girls that went out for wrestling this year. Boys wrestling regionals is this week. I'd say we have at least 4 that have a shot, and a couple that we're really hoping qualify for state. Basketball, we got 2 weeks left, regular season, so 3 games. We're at Coffeyville tomorrow. Right now, they're both on the edge of hosting a home playoff game, so hopefully we can finish strong, at least get a home playoff game. Swim, boys swim, saw large gains. We didn't make it to state, either of them, but they both did a good job, and they trimmed their time down, so that was good to see. Activity-wise, we have an orchestra concert, we have a choir concert coming up, so it's good to see those going. On the other side of things, e-hall pass, I think last time I was here, I talked to you about we were gonna start e-hall pass this semester. So we've been in it about a month, and I think it's working really well. Great feedback from the teachers, students as well. We're able to dive into data and see how much time are we spending in a hallway, in a bathroom. We can limit bathroom usage. Students that take advantage of time, we can limit how many times they can request to go somewhere. So there's some kinks to work out. We're still working through it, but for a month in, I think it's going really well. I'm happy with it. I think the teachers are happy. Moving forward, we'll probably dive a little deeper, but like today at in-service, we were able to dive in and I was able to show them, hey, here's these students, look how much time they're spending. And it's kind of eye-opening when you're like, okay, I know they use the bathroom in my class, but wow, they went to the bathroom 7 times today for 7 minutes each time. It's 49 minutes out of their day. So it really adds up, and it's nice to see that, and okay, what are we going to do to address it? How can we fix it? So it's a great tool to use, and I think almost everybody is bought in and doing a good job with it. Spring sports coming up, track, girls swim, boys golf, boys tennis, baseball, softball. So excited to get that going spring with everything he just said. Add in every sport I just said. Kids will be in and out of the building all day, all week, so it's a very busy time, but it's fun, it's exciting. Like to see the kids doing stuff.
Any questions?
I don't know what your e-hall pass is. I can kind of imagine, but.
So it's a program where you could have it on your phone. I have it on my watch. You can get it any technology. Computer mainly is what we use, but you log in. So a student would request through the system to go to the bathroom, another teacher, the library, whatever it may be, and then the teacher at their pace, when they want to, can approve that. And so it times it, how long you're out of the room, where you're supposed to be. So if we see a student in the hallway, we check e-hall pass, and they're not in the system, that means either, one, the student didn't do what they're supposed to, they're skipping, they're out of class when they're not allowed, or the teacher didn't do what they're supposed to. And we haven't really ran into that much, so we're able to time how much time is spent, where they're going. If it runs over a certain amount of time, it gets flagged, so then we can say, okay, where's this student at? So it's a really good tool for that. The kids use it on their phone all the time. They can pull out their phone and do it that way.
It's pretty private for them.
Yes, yeah, and so they don't have to raise their hand in the middle of a lesson. They can just request it on their laptop, and then maybe when the teacher gets to a break and they're working independently, they can, go over and approve
Say
it.
it's okay.
So it's a really good system. I know the middle school loves it. They've done a great job with it, so we kind of followed their lead on it.
Thank you.
So will these reports, like the kids that maybe are chronic, is that going to be included in their student-led conferences that they have to tell their parents, like, hey, this is how many minutes I'm out of class?
I hadn't thought about that, but that's kind of a good idea. That'd be an eye-opener, I think.
I think so. I know my kids didn't like it, which means I knew it was working. So I was excited about it,
I can
but
see it being an impact too, or helpful if there's a crisis or something, and then
100%,
you know where
yeah.
the kids were supposed to have gone.
Yeah, it's great for security purposes. If you don't know where the students are, you should be able to check that, and if everybody's doing things right, immediately know they're either here or here, or somewhere in between, hopefully.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mint. Appreciate it. Middle school's up.
I like that suggestion. We have a spot on our student-led conferences for attendance. I'm sure we can cut that in half and just show how much time you've spent out of class for any reason. Outside of it, according to the whole pass, we can pull it individually. All right, so I'm going to piggyback on a couple of things that Rob said. Last week, we were able to do the Future Finance Now. That was through Sparkwheel. And Sparkwheel, they brought the community members in. They set up tables kind of around the gym. And they got it all organized. We were able to send our 8th grade students over. We split them into 2 different groups alphabetically, and they got to experience what it's like to budget over the course of a period as an adult. It included childcare, transportation, kind of like a life skills crash course for them. With that, we've also got student-led conferences coming up. That's going to be on March 4th and 6th with our staff this morning. That's kind of how we started it off, was getting ready for student-led conferences. We've got 90% of it accomplished and ready. There's still a couple items that we need to check off our list in preparation for that. The student-led conferences this year, it's going to include the students' personality. We found one that's, it's got 16 different traits. What we've done in the past is we've done the color code. It gives you 4. We've done love languages. We've done what type of animal personality trait you are. But this year we found one, it's pretty in-depth, and what we've struggled with in the past is finding one that's like at a middle school level. The color code is great, but it also, a lot of the vocabulary is at, a post-secondary level. This is more middle school minded. And so it's right, it's kind of cartoonish, it's right in our sweet spot, it's right in our strike zone. And so we're going to use that personality quiz. It's going to include GPA, attendance, their FastBridge scores, as well as their FastBridge goals, grades, and their Zello career interests. At the in-service today, like I said, we started off with getting ready for student-led conferences. But the main focus of the day was to kind of respond to our panorama survey, climate survey that we did with the staff. One thing that we saw, and we've seen rises, we've seen increases from our staff in a lot of good areas. One of the things that we saw an opportunity to grow in was to give the staff some input on where their professional development time was spent. We got feedback from them right before we went on Christmas break from a survey, and then we put it together. And then last month we got some experts in a couple different fields. But this is the kind of, we did like our own ed camp. And so I'm calling that, it's differentiated PD. And so like what we did this year in November, the entire district was given options at the district level of interest. And so my staff wanted to know, just middle school specifically, what we need. And so we were able to generate some of those sessions. It included brain mapping, de-escalation training, how to use the professional development toolbox. We have new staff members that, they wanted some clarifications on how do my professional development points work. We did love and logic. We did differentiated lesson planning for students from low to high. We also started off this session, they wanted help with AI inside of the classroom, not just what the students have access to, but how can it make your teachers' lives a little bit easier also. And so Hope Smith and Joe Kampmeyer jumped on that one as an opportunity, and it turned out that's what everybody chose. And so we had 4 different sessions, and we had 2 choices each session, but the AI is what everybody kind of focused on, and so we canceled the other choice because nobody signed up for it. Everybody went to the AI piece of it. In April, so from the mid-year check-in and the results that we got on their interests, we're going to continue that in April, and there's a couple little opportunities. We had some staff members that they've only taught at Parsons, and so they wanted to go see what it's like in surrounding districts. And so next we're reaching out to Frontenac, Independence, and seeing if we can't get some of our staff members. They heard that we had been taken, basically our admin team, myself, Mrs. Barkis, Mrs. Nolting, and Mrs. Quaren, we went and we checked in with Pittsburgh, and we did the same thing with Chanute, with an eye on interventions at the middle school level, at the secondary level, which is challenging. And so they kind of got the idea from us, and they want to go see some other districts. And so it's really nice having those in-services on those Mondays in that calendar, because the other schools are in school while we're in service. So and I've done this with my PE teachers also. We've sent them to 2 other school districts this year on those days also to go find best practices. And so that's what we're going to take a couple staff members and do that in April. And then I also wanted to touch base on our PLCs, those Wednesday mornings. Those are going really well. What we've been able to focus on, we've always done admin walkthroughs, but starting in November last year, this school year, but last 2023 in November, we trained the staff on how to do walkthroughs. And so now they're doing 1 walkthrough a month on each other, and they're dropping into classrooms and they're practicing it also. So whenever we got back at one of the PLCs, we compared and contrasted. There was the difference between what the admin is seeing and what the staff is seeing. And one thing we needed some clarification on is student talk versus teacher talk. And so that's guided some of our PLCs to continue kind of refining and better understanding what it means to walk into a classroom and see the teacher owning the information or the students owning the information. And we've also focused on, oh goodness, help me out, walkthroughs, grading practices. And so the most effective grading practices to make sure that we're actually measuring intelligence and learning and not so much compliance. And so we picked out 3 basic best practices, and that's what we've been kind of focused on. And we got that from our visits in Chanute and Royster. They have very well-defined grading policies, and that's something that we can add to our staff handbook also. And I'm going to turn it over for activities.
So boys basketball has a game tonight in Pittsburgh. This is a rescheduled game from one of our snow days, but then their last game is tomorrow. We ended at home. They've had a pretty successful season. We've seen growth at all levels, but 8th grade A has really shown some successes. They got second in the Winter Classic a couple weekends ago, so that's really cool. Esports, so far we only have 5 students participating in the club, but after basketball ends tomorrow, I would assume that would go way up. Chess, they placed 3rd as a team this weekend at our home tournament, and at our home tournament, K through 12, we had over 100 chess participants, athletes, chess leads? I don't know what to call them. And our Scholars Bowl placed 3rd at Indy last week, 2 weeks ago, and they have 3 more meets left. One thing that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention is the girls wrestling in the Southeast Kansas area. We're looking at splitting girls and boys wrestling into 2 different seasons. Right now, in most places, they are combined, but that does bring up an issue of girls have to choose between wrestling and girls basketball. So with some other area ADs, we're talking about moving that girls season to during boys basketball. But what that would open up is we would have to hire another coach for that, and then we'd also have to find a place for them to practice because our high school wrestling room is occupied by the high school wrestling team at that time. We haven't sat down, we're sitting down soon with the Pioneer League and with our SEK, not leagues in middle school, but area ADs to try to figure out what we can do to give those girls the best opportunities and so that we're all on the same page and that they have people to compete against.
And equal choices.
Yeah. And then our spring sports will start after spring break, and I look to have great attendance in track, golf, and boys tennis.
Any questions for middle school? Go ahead.
So on your AI, what platforms do you use? You use Genesis, Copilot, Bard?
ChatGPT to kind of get started, but they found a way, and this is, I don't want to speak for Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. Smith introduced it today, a platform, and so she teaches one period of communications. She taught communications for 20 plus years. We needed her to pick up an extra prep this year, and so she's teaching 6th grade ELA. She found a way, because one of our conversations was we want to make sure that the students, that we're measuring their specific learning and individual learning, and it's not norms practiced. And so she's even admitted whenever I'm going through and I'm grading essays, I have an idea in my mind on what an A looks like, whether there's a rubric or not. And so that means it's more like norms-based. Whenever she puts that student's writing into the platform, it'll grade it and it'll show a rubric, and it'll identify the thesis, it'll identify the supporting details, and it kind of takes the human error out of it just a little bit, and it'll at least give her, at the end of the day, she has ultimate say over the grade book, and she's the license inside of the room, but it's just an additional tool to help her with grading some of those writings. She can type in, she can put in the rubric, it'll grade it for her or assign those details.
Greenbush has some awfully good platforms, plus like, what's his name, Ronnie, I forgot his last name.
Ronnie Williams.
You can't, you start asking kids to put emotions in their writing, AI has a real hard time doing that.
Yeah. So in those Greenbush instructional leader cohorts every Wednesday, that's what, those are some of the resources that we're pulling whenever we practice some of those things. And so that way we're not out on an island and we're pulling some of the best practices.
So on the chat GPT, I know she can put the rubric in. Are kids able to also insert their writing to see what grade they would have if they
Yes.
turned it in?
Kind of like,
Like a check, I guess, to see if they need to do revisions.
did you ever use turnitin.com or
No.
Turnitin? So whenever it was a submission, that's what it reminds me of whenever I see what she's using. And I always told my students whenever we were writing, I'm not a police officer, I'm not here to catch you. You've got to learn, because you get to the college level and, what is it, 10, 15% can be in common with another source. And so that's what, I would have them submit it on, and at the time the platform was Turnitin, they would submit it and they would get back a report that said 25%. Okay, so it shows you where it's highlighted, what was in common. Then you go back and you reframe that so that it's not 25, get below that 15% and then submit it. And so then it's a learning opportunity and you're not police, it's not a gotcha.
Yeah,
So,
no, I
yeah,
love that they
same
can go
thing.
back and
Yeah.
be guided on their revisions. And it's much quicker whenever you have one teacher and 20 kids versus.
It makes it
Yeah.
a lot more effective. Because they
Exactly.
can get feedback immediately, whereas it might take her a couple days to get through 120 writings.
Exactly.
Other questions? Okay, thank you for your report, appreciate it. Good seeing you tonight.
All right, for elementary this evening, Mr. Freeze and Mr. Pontius both weren't able to attend. They've got written reports for you. So we've got Mrs. Gardner, though. Tell us what's happening at Lincoln.
I'll go first.
You can go last too.
I'll be last too.
That's right.
Well, Lincoln is a very busy building and it's very fun. So some of the things that's happening is we've traded our first grade class with Presbyterian Manor. Mrs. Hutley went the first semester and Mrs. McGuire's class is going to go the second semester. And so that's the bridging the gap. So once a month, the Manor brings residents over to Lincoln. And then we also take the first grade class over to their facility so they can kind of mingle with the residents there. I know at the end of the semester, they're kind of planning on both classes coming and maybe doing lunch with the residents and kind of, getting to eat with them and talking with them. So that's a cool thing. We did celebrate our 100th day of school with a lot of 100th day activities. We had 100 things in bottles. We had what I would look like as a 100-year-old person. Zero the Hero came. So we had lots of fun with that. On February 2nd, Chris the Cardinal came and celebrated their 100th anniversary, or their 100th birthday is what they called it. And so he came into our morning assembly and we sang happy birthday. They did some trivia. They gave out prizes to the kids. We had a lot of fun. And then the 14th, not only is Valentine's Day, but the kindergarten is doing science rotations, and it's over Earth systems. So they just go around and they rotate in each room, and the teacher teaches the lesson. So they get all of the lessons for all of the kindergarten teachers. Coming up, on February 28th, our book fair starts, and it's also Spring Picture Day. So that's going to be a busy day.
It is. And today, all of the elementaries spent their day of professional development in letters training. And so there's one more.
One more letters training because we're on this time we did volume 2, unit 7. So next time it's going to be volume 2, unit 8, and then we will be finished.
Right. And then all of our current pre-K through 5 classroom teachers, instructional coaches, and special ed staff will be trained. Which most districts can't say that.
Yeah.
But we can.
And the feedback on that program is excellent.
It's all research-based.
Yes.
It's
There's a lot of information.
And what we found is that, clear back in 2004, when we had the Reading First grant, and then we had all of that initial training, and it was a lot of in-depth professional development. As we look out in the crowd today, and I see all of the there aren't many of those of us left. Maybe a handful of those that were trained that are still around. And so this is good professional development because there's so many alternate ways to licensure for our teachers, and so they haven't all had the same instruction in reading and in brain science and that kind of thing. And so this kind of helps. It's what's right for kids, and it's a great tool in the tool belt for our instructors. So.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to 10.0, report on the Tri-County Board meeting. Mrs. Hunter.
Try not to say too much. they were talking about the Job Olympics, and it was held with 44 students participating and competing, and they leveled it 3 different levels, depending on the students' abilities and the skills that they would be most beneficial for them. They praised the ladies that worked on the whole organization. Of course, our Sherry Dunley was in there. So, and also they thanked the Parsons High School for donating medals, kind of recycling some medals. And they said the kids really liked those. The legislative luncheon that was scheduled for January 10th was canceled, which you probably all saw that, but they encouraged everyone to continue to share their needs with the legislators. Emily McCambridge reviewed the winter and spring Tri-County initiatives, and it was a very quick presentation, and honestly, I didn't know what a lot of it was about. I mean, she explained it all, but I'm going to have to catch up on some of those. And they also we approved the hiring of an additional school psychologist for the 24-25 school year to kind of lighten the load. That's basically, pardon me?
For which district?
They didn't say. I think they're going to hire someone, and then I guess they'll decide where they're all going to be.
Well, they may have to then move them around.
They did say there was one that was sharing and having to travel a lot. I believe it seems like it was, but I honestly don't remember which districts. But they were wanting to lighten the load for one person that was trying to cover an awful lot. So, and then I have to ask, already, March 20th, I need a sub, because I planned a trip before I even got elected, so.
So March 20th, can anybody go
March
to
20th.
Tri-County on March 20th? It'd be a Wednesday, the 20th,
They changed theirs from their spring break also.
to the 20th. If we don't have any initial volunteers, if you can check your calendars and let us know.
Send out an email or something, reminder.
Okay.
So, like,
I should be able to. I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thanks,
So we-
Kayla.
Kayla's name down.
If you
and
would
then-
tell me the details of where and when later, that would be great.
And I will, I usually get the agenda ahead of time, I'll get that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Moving to 11.0, action to accept donations to schools.
The donations are listed on page 34 of your packet. Now, remember, these are December donations, because when we changed the date of the board meeting, then that changed the day in which things were received from the business office. So Lincoln Elementary had the following donations in December. Hawaiian Brothers Teacher Appreciation, $125. All Seasons Floral Teacher Appreciation, $50. Scooters Teacher Appreciation, $50. Pure Life Teacher Appreciation, $45. The Mustard Seed Teacher Appreciation for $40. Taco Mayo for $30. Granny Bees for $20. Better Life, $14. Remnant, $10. Bleacher Gear, $10, and all of those were for teacher appreciation. Interstate Studio, an unrestricted donation, and that would be from the Fall Photo Commission, $546.19. And PTO made a restricted donation for Christmas, $534, for a total of donations at Lincoln, $1,474.19. Garfield for the month, grade school PTO made a Christmas mini grant restricted donation, $299.55. And HD Photography LLC had that fall photo commission unrestricted $324.80 for a total of $624.35. At Guthridge, PTO had made a gingerbread house donation for $207.47. There was Holiday Stations from PTO. That donation was valued at $41.12. And then PTO Holiday Stations Cookies and Cocoa, $96.80. Then their Interstate Studios, from their Fall Photo Commission, $279.87, for a total of $625.26. There were no donations in December at the middle school. At the high school, there was an anonymous donation for Honor Flight, $590. Jeremy and Sarah Fitzgerald made a donation of $126 for the volleyball program, and Interstate Studios for positive reinforcement donation, $230.08, for a total of $946.08, for a total of district donations, $3,669.88 for the month of December. As always, we appreciate the generous people in our community that make those donations, and I request that you approve those.
And our PTO.
And our PTO. Well, yeah, you're part of the community. You're like, yeah. You're
I
in it,
so
yeah.
move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those donations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 11.1, discussion and action on possible makeup days due to inclement weather.
Okay, so on the 23-24 calendar, there were 3 possible makeup days listed for inclement weather, that being February the 19th, March the 29th, and then May the 20th. So we have been out of school for weather already this year, January the 16th, the 22nd, and the 23rd. So now we just need to decide, the board just needs to decide how many of those days, if any, will be made up. So schools are required to have the 1,116 hours for students K-12. There is no requirement for pre-K hours, and then, no, K-11, because seniors have a different requirement of 1,086. So our full calendar is 1,175 hours for students K-11 and 1,130 hours for our seniors. So in the view, last week it did say if we made up 0 days, then our K-11 student hours would be 1,154, and seniors would be 1,109. If we made up 1 day, it would be 1,161 for K-11, 1,116 for seniors. If we made up 2 days, it would be 1,168 K-11, and then the seniors 1,123. And obviously, if we made up all 3 days, then it would be a full calendar, go back to the 1,175.
So from past practices, I would recommend that we make up one of those days on March 29th.
Yeah, historically, what's happened since our calendar is always in excess of what's mandated, we kind of have a few extra,
That's some wiggle room.
quite a few days built in extra. And so in these types of situations, we try to do what's best for the district, and so.
And I feel like now, if the board were to say February 19th to make up that day, that is a week from today. And so there may or may not be staff that already have plans and/or appointments. I don't know. And so that may impact substitutes. And then we know that adding a day on the last day of school is typically, it's not effective for kids. I mean, everybody's done by May the 20th, so.
Yeah, I agree with Liv.
What day of the
Good with
week
that.
is March 29th?
So March the 29th,
A Friday.
I think would be a Friday.
Before Easter.
Good Friday this year.
And so there still is that following Monday that is professional development, right? So parents and families would still have a 3-day weekend at that Easter time. They would have the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And if we were all to go back on March the 29th.
Okay, so Lou's got a motion.
Second.
I think Olivia seconded it already.
No, I didn't.
No, David seconded, I think, or he was about to, and then Olivia wanted to discuss it further. And so what were you wanting to talk about, Olivia?
No, I just wanted to know what day of the week it was.
Gotcha.
And it was
Okay.
Friday, so
Okay.
I'm
All right.
happy.
Okay, all right. So any further discussion on that then? Okay, moved and seconded to go on March 29th to make one of those 3 inclement weather days up. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. 11.2, action to approve engaging with CASB to assist with professional negotiations for 24-25.
All right, so that was something that had come up. March the 31st is the day that we exchange the letter with PNEA for the items for negotiation. In the past, KASB has negotiated on behalf of the board, and in recent years. So I think maybe given that last year's negotiation took an extended amount of time, and it did, it drug clear on until October, it might be something to look at. There is a charge for that. However, KASB has 3 attorneys, one that we have used regularly to do that. So all of that was included in the view on February the 2nd.
So this is an attorney that comes down whenever there's negotiations. Commonly, the PNEA might have somebody,
Right.
their agent with them, and then we would have accompanying Kayla and Lou, our professional negotiator. A lot of years, we haven't done that. If we've got things done quickly, PNEA doesn't have anybody either. A lot of years, for a long period of time, we did have people, they did have people, so I can see some value in it. Obviously, it costs too, so it's up to the board.
Well, there were some legal issues that we didn't really understand, and we needed that help from the Kansas Association of School Boards attorney.
True,
And
I
help
guess that's a good
clear
point.
some things.
Good point.
So as one of the negotiators, I certainly would like that.
They charge an
attorney.
hourly rate for coming down?
They do. It's a $225 an hourly rate, and that's for prep and for meetings. And then there is the mileage charge. However, they no longer charge for the driving time, because the 2.5-hour drive used to cost
Right.
$600, some odd dollars, but not anymore. They do not charge for that.
Okay, so we'll, pleasure
I'm
of the
making a
board.
motion to approve the engagement with CASB to assist with the professional negotiations.
I'll second that.
425.
Okay, moved and seconded to engage with the CASB to assist with that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 11.3, action to approve donating the Humvee at the high school for Parsons Pathways to Freedom.
All right, so at our high school, our students have built the new, or have designed the new memorial for the veterans that will be up at Municipal Hall. That group would like to do some fundraising, and one of the ways that was suggested that they be able to fundraise would be if the Humvee were donated, and then they would take bids, they would kind of auction it off. I guess that has been done. I spoke with Bruce Ray. He was the one that contacted me initially. They have done that in other places, and that has really generated a lot of funds. And then that way, either way, it'll be stuff that our students will use because they are building that memorial here. So the thing was, we had to make sure that the funds that were used for the Humvee weren't particular federal funds, just like when the CPA was here and he said there were rules. So we went back and checked. There were not Perkins funds or VOTEC funds, you may call them, used for that, federal funds. It was financed through the PACF, the Parsons Area Community Foundation. I spoke with Becky Danick. She double-checked to make sure there weren't any other requirements for those grants, and there were not. So Bruce would like to see if the board would be willing to donate the Humvee to the Parsons Pathways to Freedom, so that they can take care of the fundraising and auctioning off the item strictly. It would strictly be a donation from the board, from the school district and the board to this particular group, and then our involvement would end there for that particular chunk of it.
I think that's a great cause. I'll certainly make a motion to approve that.
I
Second.
second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve that donation of the Humvee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. 11.5,
Okay.
excuse me, contractual agreement, sorry, 11.4, contractual agreement,
This is on,
LCC.
yeah, this is on page 35 through 38. This is something that every 2 years comes up. It's the same thing we've done every year, every time. It's so that social work students are able to come and observe and be in classrooms. So that's all that it is.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that contractual agreement with LCC. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. Now 11.5, first reading of the high school course description handbook.
Right, so this isn't really anything that we need to discuss unless you've already read it and have some ideas or suggestions. This will be something that we vote on, that the board will take action on next month. So if between now and then, I'd encourage you to read through it and look through it. If you have questions, please reach out and we'll get you either hooked up with Tabitha at the high school, or Diana, or whoever may have the clarifications.
I just want to make a comment. I did try to read most of it, and I'm just impressed with all that's offered. I just thought it was fabulous in both schools.
We do have a lot of offerings for students, absolutely. It's a good place to be.
11.6.
I like the information that was in it this year, too.
Okay.
Students, a lot of knowledge here, things that they need to do as they get ready to
As long as they read it.
Exactly. It's available. Yeah.
And same thing, 11.6 for the middle school, first reading of that, and so,
If you have anything, let me know.
thank you. 11.7, discussion and possible action on date of March board meeting, and so that was what we were discussing. Our board meeting's currently set for spring break, March 11th, which apparently is Olivia's birthday.
So we could have a meeting and have cake.
I thought you all would want to get together for that.
You know, we could do that on March 11th. We could change it to the 18th. 25th is my birthday, so we could change it to my birthday. too. Or we could just, the 18th, we could celebrate both in the middle,
Right.
yeah.
I think that's what we should do.
The difference.
Exactly.
So would we prefer the 18th then over spring break, or?
Yes.
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to change it if
I'll
that's
move
what
to
we want to
make
do.
it to the 18th of March.
Second it.
Okay, so it looks like I've got a motion on the floor to modify our March meeting date from the 11th to the 18th. In a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So now we'll move on to action on the calendar for 24-25 already.
Oh, already. That seems like we just did it the other day for this year. So it's on page 39 in your packet, and it includes the 168 student days and the 10 days of professional development, 178, so that's the same contract that we've had, an amount of time. This also has the 4 days at noon at the end of each quarter, so they can work on grades. And here's what we did. Amanda typed up 3 different possible choices and options, sent it out to everyone that's listed there that was on the calendar committee. They had an opportunity to get feedback and input from their staff, and then we had the meeting. And so that way, we really only had to have one meeting. It wasn't necessary to have a lot. So out of those 3 options, each one had, like I said, the 168 days, the 10 PD days. First day of school was a full day. So calendar 1, 2, and 3, overwhelmingly, calendar 1 was preferred by almost everyone. There were some that liked calendar 3 because it had a whole week off at Thanksgiving, but the majority liked calendar 1. And so some things that are going to, are on this calendar that are a little bit different is the first day of school will be a full day for everyone, pre-K 12. New, old, returning, been here forever, everybody's going to start first day of school and be there all day. And so that was recommended. We found that really worked well this year. We did the new students a little different, but a first full day, even though it is a long day for the littles, it's an even longer day when they dismiss at noon or at 1:30 and no one knows where they get picked up. Because they haven't gotten that transportation pattern established yet. And so then to do it, well, this is an early dismissal, and then the very next day, oh, no, now you may not go here, you go there. It's been historically kind of rough, and this year it wasn't, because it was a full day, and this is where we're going to get dropped off every day, and this is what we're going to practice. And so what they would like to do is have all the students come instead of just the new students, because what they found is that then it's a lot of repeating the same things, or you hear the whole, it just wasn't the best use of student time. So those were some changes. The other thing is this year we had, when we did grades in the morning, and then for elementaries, we had, we did, students came in the morning, then you did grades, and then you had conferences. For middle school, high school, that's not a difficult thing because you're grading as you go, it's all electronic. But for our elementary students and teachers, that is difficult because you're still grading things. I mean, like literally grading as you've tested individually kids and trying to put that in there. So the elementary students wouldn't have conferences on the same day that they did the grades. They would have conferences 2 times during that week, but just not on that grade day. They wanted to make sure that that was it. What else? We moved a couple days. Instead of every day being a Monday for PD, they put some of those on that calendar for Friday, because like right now, everything's on a Monday, so if you have you have music on Mondays, well, then you're gonna miss a whole lot of musics. It was the same thing before when we had them on Fridays. Whatever day you have it, you're gonna miss. So this will kind of spread it out. So that
So
is.
how many teacher contract days are in here and how many student
So there's-
contact days?
So there's 178 teacher contract days, and then 168 of those are student contact days. And that's historically what we've had the last few years. And so out of those teachers, 178 days, 10 of those are professional development. Now, there are those 4 half-days, which equal 2 out of the 10,
Okay.
where they have grades as a part of negotiations. So that does leave 8 professional development days. But this calendar would have everyone, professional development starting August the 19th for 3 days, all the students starting August the 22nd, and then students' last day would be May the 22nd.
Any questions about that calendar before we take action? Okay, that's the one proposed, so need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve that calendar as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to 11.9. We do have 3 executive sessions here that are going to comprise probably pushing 40 minutes, and so I don't know if we need a bathroom break
Yes.
before we... Okay. All right. So we'll have about a 5-minute bathroom break then, and then we'll need executive session. And so I think the motion is going to be, executive session starts at 7:32 for 15 minutes, the first one.
I move we go into executive session, 7:27, or 5-minute bathroom break, 7:32 for 15 minutes.
Yep.
47?
7:42.
7?
7:47.
Oh, 7:47.
Yep.
Keep forgetting the bathroom break, sorry
Yep.
guys.
I second it.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded, we go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under COMA at 7:32 for 15 minutes. We'll come back here at 7:47. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. In that motion. By whoever wishes to make it. Okay, moved and seconded to go into executive session to discuss that confidential student information. 7:49, coming back here at 8:04. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, all right. Open session, and we'll move on to our next executive session, which is for employer-employee negotiations. And so need a motion for that. Let's see, it's 8:05. Let's go 12 minutes for that. Kind of an odd number, but 12 we'll start with and see how that works. So I'll take that motion when it's made.
So we go into executive session, discuss employer-employee negotiations, 8:06, 12 minutes, and then 8:18. Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded to enter employer-employee negotiations executive session for 12 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are back in open session now, and we're going to move on to 11.12, action to extend contracts of district managers and directors.
All right, so those that are all listed, they remain in the same positions that they're in for this year. I recommend that they be approved for contracts for the 24-25 school year.
Second.
Moved and seconded to extend those contracts for 24-25 school year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 11.13.
Okay, so recommendations for employment: Chris Ball, high school full-time athletic director, the 24-25 year. Tammy Blansett, Lincoln preschool aide, effective January 29th, 2024. Kay Clark, Lincoln kindergarten aide, effective January 29th, 2024. Linda Holding, bus monitor, effective January the 12th of this year. And Teresa Taylor, Lincoln behavior support aide, effective February the 5th. I recommend that you approve those folks for employment.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those for employment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, we have some resignations from employment. Audra Geblin, sixth grade science teacher, effective February the 16th. Luke Manners, high school assistant baseball coach, effective January the 19th of '24. Emily Morris, high school dust kicker coach, my goodness, effective January the 17th of '24. And Tabitha Roth, high school assistant volleyball coach, effective January the 19th of '24. I recommend that you approve those resignations from employment.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve those resignations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. No further business. We are adjourned. Thank you.